Awakening News. You will need your Bible. Please subscribe. Welcome to 777 Awakening News. The war is real. Like the year 2008, the Bible does not provide a year. Why? The modern method of dating did not come into use until about 500 AD, and even then, it took another century to catch on. Dionysius Exiguus in about 470 to 544 AD, who pushed for the ad structure, and his motivations. Even though the Bible does not provide a method for keeping track of the years, it follows a precedent for doing so. The regnal framework is a method that relies on showing an event that occurred during a ruler's reign. For instance, such and such happened in the 5th year of ruler whoever. Luke 3:1-2 is a remarkable example of this. In those passages, Luke tries to describe the time when the expression of God came to John, the Baptist, the child of Zechariah, in the desert. According to Luke, this event occurred during the high brotherhood of Annas and Caiaphas, in the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar. Herod was tetrarch of Galilee during the time that Pontius Pilate was the legislative leader of Judea. Herod's brother Philip was tetrarch of Iturea and Trachonitis during the same time period. Luke is certain because he places the timing of John the Baptist's summons within the parameters set by 7 separate individuals. This system worked well so long as people remembered when the rulers were in power, but, as time passed, people gradually forgot both the names of the monarchs and the dates during which they were in power. This occurred before the priest Dionysius, who helped people remember the day Easter was celebrated. Which was annoying without a routine. He abandoned the religious framework and worked backwards from Jesus' birth to simplify his calculations. So, Dionysius started off his day with "since the birth of Christ, in the age of the Lord." One of the first times he used this framework was in the year 525 AD, when he was promoted. That's why the earliest dates you will see using the Anno Domini calendar will be 525 AD. In general, people in the year 524 AD were oblivious to the fact that they were living in the year 524 AD. At the time, Dionysius' theoretical framework did not have much of an audience. However, about the year 700 AD, a man called Venerable Bede who wrote a book of experiences that antedated Dionysius' framework. And this dating system was shortly thereafter widely accepted. Dionysius, considering the events of the time, decided to number the years from the year Jesus was first introduced as year 1 AD. But when antiquarianism flourished in the year 1800s and 1900s, scholars gained the ability to more precisely date people and events in the distant past. Another theory puts Herod the Great's death around the end of the 4th century AD. Since Herod was still alive at the time of Jesus' conception, this moved the announcement of his birth back to about 4 AD, or even earlier. Given that Dionysius missed the boat by at least 4 years, historians believe that Jesus was born in the year 4 AD, and others claim 5, 6, or even 7 AD. Considering he invented the framework in the Dark Ages, which is not too bad. As a result, a system was established for keeping track of years. However, adjustments had to be made to account for variations in the length of the year. The Julian calendar, which Dionysius used, consists of 3 years of 365 days and then 1 year of 366 days, sometimes known as the leap year. The Julian calendar has an issue in that a year is really 365.2425 days long rather than the more generous 365.25 days. So, if you add a day regularly, you will not have enough. There was a definite indication that the 1500s had added too many days. After further consideration, Pope Gregory XIII settled on October 15th as the day following October 4th, 1582. They modified the jump year rule to prevent a repeat of this mistake. As a result, every 4th year would not have an extra day added to it. Unless the year was evenly divisible by 400, in which case an extra day would be added. Therefore, the year 2000 was a leap year and not 1900. Part 2: The Jesus Chronology. This overview sequences a presentation of Jesus found in the 4 authorized Gospels. According to Promotion 30, Jesus should have been born around 4 AD, but he was born even earlier. Prenatal and neonatal development. Nazareth was home to a little girl called Mary. Nazareth, located around 65 miles north of Jerusalem, is in northern Israel. When she was pregnant with her first child, she made a commitment to a guy named Joseph. There is no way to tell how old he is from the happy conclusions in his stories, other than the fact that most women were married just after they finished puberty. Mary and Joseph would officially marry, but they were not sleeping or eating together at the time. Mary was informed she would get pregnant when an angelic visitor came to her. Mary did not think it was possible, given that she was a virgin, but an angel assured her it was possible since God would cause it to happen anyway. She revealed her pregnancy to Joseph, and he broke his vow by sending Mary away. Then, in a dream, God revealed to him that Mary was pregnant, and he married her immediately thereafter. The Roman government decided to conduct a registration at the same time, and everyone in the empire was required to fill out a form. To be counted as a Jew, Joseph had to go to the ancient tribal area of Bethlehem. Joseph brought along Mary, who was pregnant at the time. He was unable to reserve a room at any of the hotels, or whatever other forms of housing were introduced back in those days. So they stayed put in the area where the animals were. After Jesus' conception, he was placed in a trough, a small box-like structure used to provide food for animals. Either the same day or the day after Jesus' conception, shepherds came to visit and found him sleeping in a trough. The Jewish custom required that Jesus undergo circumcision. All Jewish boys were circumcised at the age of 8 days, as stipulated in the agreement between God and Abraham. As a devout Jew, Jesus would have undergone the ritual of circumcision. It is believed that this happened in Bethlehem. Since it was statistically necessary for Jews to relocate back to their hometowns, Joseph went back to Bethlehem. This suggested that Joseph had kin in the Bethlehem area. Jesus was living in a home when the Magi visited. What this means is that the Magi found Jesus in a house some time after the shepherds found him in a feeding trough. Joseph traveled to Bethlehem to be with his family. According to Leviticus 12:3-8, parents had to bring their newborns to the sanctuary when Jesus was 41 days old. As a result, Jesus spent some time at Jerusalem's temple before he became 41 days old and then made his way back to Bethlehem. Remember that Bethlehem was around 6 miles away from Jerusalem? Simeon, who stayed in the sanctuary, and Anna, a prophet, both saw the infant Jesus. Luke 2:25-38. The Magi showed up without delay. Since Magi is a Greek term with no clear translation, scholars have yet to come to a consensus on what exactly they were looking for. It is widely believed that there were 3 of them since they presented 3 expensive presents, thus, the term 3 wise men or 3 rulers. The Magi's first stop in their quest for Jesus was Jerusalem. Why? They had come to Jerusalem, the traditional capital, to find the new king. They informed King Herod the Great that they were on the lookout for the next king. Herod was taken aback since he had never heard of an imperial baby being shown to the public before. He instructed the Magi to locate the new king and report back with details on how to contact him. They located Jesus at a home in Bethlehem, where they presented him with their gifts. They had been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, so they did just that. When King Herod learned that the Magi had not returned, he was furious. However, he needed to eliminate the new ruler, so he ordered the execution of all young males aged 2 and under in the area. He felt a real Jewish prince had been secretly born, therefore, he tried to eliminate all the young male children in the area to protect the prince. He feared that one day the young lord would grow up and launch a rebellion against him and his offspring. The Holy Family, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, fled to Egypt. When Herod passed away in 4 AD, they went back to Nazareth. There is no record in the authorized scriptures of the time Jesus and his family immigrated from Egypt to settle in Nazareth. Matthew 2:21-22 suggests that Joseph returned to Bethlehem to raise Jesus there. Since Herod's son Archelaus ruled southern Israel following his father's death and Bethlehem was in his territory, he shifted his viewpoint. Due to his violent nature and the substantial number of Jews he slaughtered, the Romans eventually removed Archelaus from power. Joseph took his family back to Nazareth instead of settling in Bethlehem. The 12-year-old Jesus. Every year, for Passover, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus traveled to Jerusalem. However, around the age of 12, something unexpected occurred. After Jesus spent time in Jerusalem, his family in Nazareth realized he was missing from their gathering when he returned home. There are around 85 kilometers, 65 miles, between Jerusalem and Nazareth, so it took a few days. They went back to Jerusalem and discovered him chatting with the teachers in the temple's Holy of Holies. It is possible that Jesus attended a forerunner to modern Jewish rites of passage for young males. Jewish rite of passage means child of the contract, and bat mitzvah means girl of the pledge for Jewish girls today. Between the ages of 12 and 30, the Bible remains silent on any momentous events in Jesus' life. People generally believe that he is a woodworker. Joseph, who was engaged to Mary and is thought to be Jesus' biological father, was a carpenter by trade. It was a common practice during that era for sons to take up their father's professions. Aged 30 to 33, including death, burial, and resurrection, Jesus was around 30 years old when John the Baptist baptized him in the Jordan River. He then selected 12 men to serve as his 12 disciples, and he committed to a period of service that would last for 3 years, during which he traveled, taught, educated, recovered, performed miracles, and raised the dead, from anywhere between age 27 and 30. We know this because between Jesus' baptism and his crucifixion, 3 Passovers occurred, as described in the Gospel of John. Since Passover only occurs once a year, this indicates that he was dead 3 years after being submerged. Between Jesus' crucifixion and burial, the other 3 Gospel stories only mention 1 Passover. It is not that they are wrong or that John is right, rather, the first 3 Gospel writers picked 1 Passover to mention, and John picked all 3. When Jesus was just 33 years old, he rode into Jerusalem on an ass or foal the Sunday before he was crucified. As the ass or yearling carrying Jesus entered Jerusalem, onlookers laid out palm branches. The term for this is Victory Arrival. You may also hear this referred to as Palm Sunday. Jesus spent Sunday through Thursday in the Jerusalem area. On the Thursday of Passover, Jesus gathered with his 12 eyewitnesses to partake in the Seder meal. Since this was the final meal Jesus had before he died, it is sometimes referred to as the Last Dinner. During the meal, Jesus instituted fellowship assistance, also known as the Master's Dinner or Eucharist, by taking bread and wine. Since Jesus instituted communion in its place of the Passover meal, Christians do not observe this holiday anymore. Judas excused himself from the banquet in order to confer with the Jewish authorities who were in attendance. It was his intention to take them to the place where Jesus had made his private appeal to them just before nightfall. After the meal, Jesus led the 12 disciples and the 11 additional disciples to the Garden of Gethsemane so that they could pray there. Time: late Thursday night/early Friday AM. They eventually apprehended Jesus with the help of Judas, who accompanied a band of Jewish pioneers and Roman troops. Annas, a former minister, took Jesus to his house first. Since Annas was Caiaphas' stepfather, Annas sent him to the esteemed minister at the time. They brought Jesus before Pilate, the chief Roman official, just after daybreak. Pilate would have preferred to avoid any confrontation with Jesus. He recognized Jesus' Nazareth roots and sent him to meet with Herod Antipas. Remember that Nazareth was in central Israel, under the rule of Herod Antipas, the son of Herod the Great. Thanks for watching.